So, welcome to Shay's Pretty Skinny, where we're doing everything except keeping it cute about personal growth, development, and everything in between, right? Everything that has something to do with us and self-love. Uh, and we're getting into this conversation about resonant consent, right? Giving yourself permission um, to be who you know you are, who you think you are, honey. But before we get into all of those conversations, I've been laying the groundwork for some of the things that came from conversations before, because everything's leading up to this. However, any of the podcasts are still there. The group is still open if you want to join in. All of those posts are still there. The 6-week Inner Sailboat series is there also. I suggest taking a look at that and some of those prompts that are in there and going through that before you start hearing the resident consent information, if you are not familiar with this type of information and content. I also want to explain that a lot of the time Bible verses, religious references or religious text references come up in my conversations. However, as far as doctrine and dogma and things like that, is that's not the focus. Okay. However, the community that I am a part of, a lot of people and a lot of the one-on-one conversations I've had with individuals and coaching sessions I've done with people, there's some type of faith-based belief, or a lot of people identify as Christian or whatnot, and so they use the Bible, or at least they are inclined to reference the Bible as a guidebook, as a temperature check for their own lives. And so sometimes that conversation comes up here as well. It's part of my world. If you're into it, stay, be part of the conversation. If you're not into it, you're supposed to scroll or click off, right? You never want to keep anything in your energy that you do not align with, all right? It's detrimental to your health. And there's no, like, why would you take poison just to see does it work? That doesn't even make sense, right? So if it's content that you don't feel aligned with, then you're not supposed to consume that content. Like, love yourself. That's part of self-love as well. Consume things that align with you and where you are in your journey. You'll find that, at least I have found that whatever I'm doing in life and whatever I'm doing as far as my personal development, there may have been things introduced to me early on. Then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna put a pin on that, right? But it didn't align with me at the time. And I think of it like that verse in Matthew. I think we might talk about that today. Jesus is telling the parables and the stories to the fishermen, right? They're out fishing or whatnot, and he lets them know, hey, there's some people that they're going to understand these stories. They're meant to understand these stories, right? I don't get to choose who those people are, but there's some people who are just meant to understand, and then there's some people who won't understand. And that's how we are at every point of our journey. There's some things that are like, that does not even make sense, right? It doesn't need to make sense, and it's not supposed to make sense, right? Because maybe what needs to be identified has not been identified. What needs to be aligned has not been aligned. So you cannot see it, right? Because most of the time we are looking and we are thinking with just our naked eye, right? What's right in front of us, right? We are not looking, listening, and thinking out of discernment. All right. Because that would require us to move from faith, the evidence of things hoped for, right, but not seen, right? So we really only evaluate and confirm the things that we already see materialize, but there's so much more going on. Anywho, let's get into it. Let me see if I could get this shared, and we'll get through this information. If you have any questions, concerns, additives, then go ahead, put it in the comments. Let a sister know. All right. So I'm going to share this screen real quick. We're going to be talking about faith, belief, and knowing. Is there a difference? If so, what would it be exactly? And that's because many people, like I said, they are reading the Bible. They say it's the most read book, most popular book that has been published in this era that we're aware of, right? And so that's probably because of those healing stories and everything, the miracles and the goodness of Jesus and all that good stuff, right? But even so, with all of that, it's mostly presented like if we believe hard enough, that whatever God, Jesus, whatever the Most High has to bestow upon us, then that's how we're going to receive it, right? Now, if you're new here, you may not know, but if you've been watching some videos, you've been looking at my social media, every now and then you hear that word metaphysics, and I talk about things metaphysically and then from a perspective of positive psychology as well, and those two things are kind of being merged in this space, okay? But metaphorically, the Bible stories, the Bible accounts often point to something deeper. Yes, there is meat and there's something there's a snack on the surface, right? But there's a full course meal, all right, underneath the surface. And Jesus was not always like rewarding blind belief. And that's how we present it, but that's not true, right? Oftentimes, Jesus was revealing a state of inner alignment in the folk he healed. And how do we know this? Or why would I even think that's what's going on? Well, when you read a lot of the healing accounts where Jesus is involved, he'll say stuff like, "Your faith has made you whole. According to your faith, be it unto you." Or only believe, right? These things come up several times, and that's what struck my interest on, well, what's that with this faith? Okay. So, um, I'm a person who always questions a bunch of things, right? I went to a school that said it was okay to do so as well. It's like there's the answers, but don't be afraid to question the answers. So even in my own faith and my religious journey, my spiritual journey, I'm questioning things. And sometimes I run into people when you ask questions, they get upset. For me, that's how I know I'm not rocking with that, because never should you be afraid to be questioned. Okay. Never should you have to feel afraid about asking questions. Asking questions and questioning is not a threat to your faith and your spirituality and your relationship with the Most High. The disciples asked Jesus questions all the time, and he didn't dismiss them. Sometimes he was frustrated. He's like, "How long I gotta be with y'all fools? I'm trying to go back to where I came." This earthly experience is exhausting with these human beings, right? And so, but never be afraid to ask questions. When people start getting frustrated with you, move away. Give them a break. That's what I'm gonna say. Give them a break. Don't cut them off. Just give them a break. All right. But in other moments, he does heal people without mentioning faith at all, right? So we're gonna talk about that a little bit. And I think metaphysically, faith is not just this intellectual agreement. And I think a lot of people don't realize that the Christianity that's happening today, like Jesus wasn't going around like saying, "Come and be a Christian." He did say, "Follow me," but he didn't say, "Come and be a Christian." There's some things that Jesus was doing. It was like, and that's why the Christians, we're gonna call them Christians, the Pharisees and the Sadducees. That's why, they were following the faith. Those individuals who had access to the scrolls was like, "Hey, what are you doing? You're going against everything." They were already in with the Romans, right? So they were already lying in bed with the Romans. And I don't know, for me, it feels the same today. There's already faith-based individuals who are in bed with the government. Like they already push an agenda that's supposed to be a push. They already tell you that the Bible is for public spiritual consumption, just like the book of Eli, right? They're looking for that book. Why? Because that book holds power. Why does that book hold power? Because of the things that lies underneath. Except that book was put together for the public, right? That book was put together for the public to yield the power of the public. Anywho, all right. So faith is an energetic, emotional, mental, and spiritual openness to possibility. And everything is possible. Okay. Everyone likes that quote from I think it's Audrey Hepburn, I think, where it says, "I'm possible." It's right there in the word. So it's not impossible. I'm possible. Everything is possible. And that's what faith is about. Like we often can't get with it. We can't, our faith, gets pushed around and bullied a little bit because we think we should know all the ways that things can happen and line up and align for us. We don't. We don't. So faith is not even knowing. Everything I know says this is not going to happen, but I know it. I don't know. That's not my business to know how it's supposed to happen. I just know it's possible. And there's things out there that I don't even know about that can make this possible. So that's all I know. Whatever it is, y'all need to come together. Whatever the energies are, send them my way. Orchestrate, organize. Let's go ahead and realize this possibility, right? All right. So let's talk about defining faith metaphysically, because I think it's a little bit different than what you would say as far as the Bible goes. Not much different, but maybe a little bit different. Okay, so let's just start there really quick. Now, faith is not just belief. It definitely goes beyond that. Many people, we talk about faith and belief interchangeably, but metaphysically, they're definitely not the same thing. Okay. So belief is often something that is a mental acceptance. Maybe you have inherited ideas, right? Like what religion, what faith you believe in. There's some hopeful thinking. So you think they're gonna make it? I believe so. You're not sure, but you're definitely hoping that it happens, right? I believe so. Or maybe an agreement with the concept, all right? And so you could believe something and still internally resist it. That's what all those affirmations are about, right? Trying to align the internal, trying to talk yourself into believing something internally as well as what you say it is from your mouth, right? Because your mind could be thinking something completely different. An example of that is saying something like, I believe I deserve love. But at the same time, you're still feeling unworthy. So you believe that you deserve love, but I don't feel worthy, which means I don't really feel worthy of love. But I think I should get it anyway. Okay? Nothing wrong with that. That's a natural process. It's very normal. However, that process, that thought contradicting with what's internally known to you and how you feel, what you think is the truth internally, that creates energetic contradiction. Okay. And so the energy is never going to flow the way you think it should flow because you're not in flow. You can't step into the flow. You can see it. You can see everybody else flowing, but you cannot step into the flow. And so the experience you want of the flow is not there for you. But you know it exists. But internally, you don't believe it exists for you. Okay? So metaphysically, faith is having embodied trust, inner alignment, expectancy. That's what they tell you, tell it what you want. Tell it to give it to you, right? You're not asking because this already exists for me. Open the door, right? So expectancy. A lot of people, when we start talking about religion, that's going to be something that we don't think should happen, but we'll get to that later. Metaphysically, faith is like a receptive consciousness, and it's movement without external proof, movement without being able to see the material thing already existing. Okay, so faith is less of, oh, I hope this is going to happen for me. I believe it can. And it's more of like, I'm internally available for this reality. Okay. Heal me. I don't really know if you can. Heal me. Everybody who approached Jesus wanting to be healed believed. Nope. Nope. They didn't believe. Believed. Nope. They knew that he had the authority to heal. They knew that he was working in an energy that could heal them, and they expected it because they told him, if you want to. The only way I can't be healed is because you don't want to. That's what they knew, not what they believed, what they knew. right? And so they were internally available for the reality. Nothing had worked before. No doctors had been able to heal them. With leprosy, they had been excommunicated, okay, from daily life, right? They couldn't have any relationships. They couldn't work. Nothing had worked before. What reason did they have to believe that it worked now? They didn't have a reason to. They knew that there was an authority that was beyond them that could heal them, and that person had access to it. So I gotta go see this person. Even if I gotta go get lowered down through this roof. Somebody gonna get me in there because I know that authority will heal me. I'm walking out of here with my legs. I'm gonna take this bed and I'm gonna walk up out of here. Okay? They knew. So faith is something that is participatory on your part, not just the asking, but on your part. Okay. And when you know, because that's that surety, right? That's that clarity. When you know, that changes your posture, changes your perspective, it reorganizes your behavior, right? When that man, he probably, I'm gonna cook, I'm gonna do this, he already made plans based on him being able to use his legs. He had no expectation of leaving that talk where Jesus was in that bed being carried by his friends. That man made plans. He made plans to be doing something. He's like, I'm gonna walk over here and I'm gonna go talk to this woman that I've been looking at this whole time. I see her beauty. I sees her and I want her. And I'm gonna walk over there and I'm gonna talk to her. That man made plans based on the fact that he was gonna be able to use his legs. You see what I'm saying? How often do we do that? And when we do it, what do people say to us? They think we're crazy, don't they? They'll call you crazy. Oh, they don't really know. And until it works out. Then when it works out, then they knew we were gonna do it. They're there for our success, right? But usually you're the only one knowing that it's gonna work out. Okay? All right. So we got that under our belt. Let's I hope you guys are seeing what I'm seeing. Sometimes it's so difficult to make sure. I was never the pointer person with the presentation because I was afraid that like it was gonna go further than I needed to. Anywho, so now we're gonna talk about faith as receptivity. Okay, what is that knowing? Why is it different? And so we talked about knowing, believing, and there's a difference. Why? Knowing is deeper than just having like this emotional hype or positive thinking. Okay, so we talk about positivity a lot, but there's that thing we talk about as toxic positivity. So just is like making it positive doesn't make it positive. Okay, it's the knowing that helps you to feel anchored. Okay, like again, it affects your behavior and how you move around, and it definitely exists before that physical appearance happens, before you know everyone can look at it and say, okay, I see you, right? Now, metaphysically knowing is when you have coherence between the mind, the body, and the spirit. It's an internal resonance. All three of those things are working together. And we are this beautiful machine where our mind, our body, and spirit is connected on disconnected, and it's on purpose. And it's so that other individuals can have the access, okay, to use our beautiful machine, right? But when we're able to coordinate and get those things to work together, then we experience internal resonance and we have this settled awareness about ourselves, kind of, right? We stop arguing internally. We stop arguing externally with people too. You stop negotiating with, oh, I don't even know if that can happen. You know what? It can. I don't know how it's going to happen. It's really not my concern because that's not my part of the job, right? My part of the job is to align. What does that mean? What does that mean? What am I asking for? Am I really aligned with it? Because if I'm not, I need to get aligned with it. How do I do that? That's my part, right? So, as an example, a person might believe that they are lovable, right? But then panic when intimacy, when love does present itself, right? We push it away. This can't be real because I still don't believe that I'm lovable. Even though I'm saying I deserve love, I'm calling it in. But I think that's what I'm calling it in. Why are you calling it if you don't believe it? Why are you calling it? And then when it come over there, oh my God, I don't know. Then don't call it. Okay. Now, another person, they might know that they are lovable, right? And therefore, they're like not chasing this, they're not being performative, they're not begging or being I think that's what people call pick me or something like that for validation. I still don't really understand that term. The way that people use it is not very consistent. But anywho, they're not begging for validation. I think that's what pick me means. So no, they're not no longer doing that, right? So the behavior that is being displayed reveals them being conscious of self and who they are and that knowing. Okay. And the healing stories in the Bible are consciousness lessons, right? Many healing stories in the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, can be interpreted as shifts in consciousness. Jesus, he was frequently asking questions like, what do you want? Do you believe? Will you be made whole? So not that I can, not that you're asking, but will you be made whole? Will you allow yourself to be made whole? Or will you need to reject? Because if you reject it, then that's you. It's not that you can't be made whole. All right. Let me move on. So why would you ask someone who is visibly suffering if they want healing? You can see them suffering, right? Do you want to be made whole? Because metaphysically, attention, identity, and readiness, those all matter. So then that's when Jesus is popping back with it. It's definitely I can. And this is not about whether I want to or not want to. I definitely want to. But do you want to be made whole? Okay. Some people, some of us, we become identified with suffering. And that sometimes becomes when people don't want to be around us, they don't want to invite us to anything. It's like, oh, you didn't invite, I wanted to invite Patty, but every time, I know. It's nice to be around a group of people who know, okay? And we love our friends who don't know, but it's like, girl, how long you gonna be around us and still not believe that you that one? How long you gonna be around us? How long we gotta keep telling you that you that one? We want you to wake up knowing that you that one. We got other things we want to talk about. Then who's the one? We all the one. We all the one. That's why we're here together. And if you're not feeling like the one, then maybe you need to fall back. And some people take that as being mean, but that's really the truth. Okay? Because some people identify with lack. Some people identify with suffering. Some people identify with being the victim, and there's nothing else that they can see. Okay? And some become organized around limitation. Okay? Some people unconsciously fear transformation. I've had this issue too. What is it? What is it officially called? Uh, it's like a fear of success. Can't think of the term right now. Imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome. You don't work hard. You don't put in the hours, right? Everybody starts off brand new at some point. All right. Yes, there are people out there already popping and doing their thing, but they also had a first day. Okay. If you want to be a preacher or something like that, everybody had a first sermon. Okay. But you're like, oh, I really don't know if I'm a preacher because you ain't had any sermons. Well, you ain't gonna be a preacher if you never have one, you know. Now don't you be out here grifting and scamming people as a preacher. Anywho, healing is not always blocked by lack of desire. It's not that you don't want it, you definitely want it. But a lot of the times it's blocked by conflicting identity. I, I I feel like I could do that. I believe I could do that. Right? Oh, but look how they do it so well. I'm not really like, how are people going to receive me? Well, we don't know because you're not giving us you. I don't know what to receive. You haven't given me anything to receive or reject. You're just automatically rejecting yourself based on what you see already existing. We don't see you yet. Okay? You still in the letting everything come together so it can materialize. That's something I had to learn myself. Nobody can see what you bring it to the table. If you don't bring it to the table, you gotta serve it. Okay? And you can't be afraid to serve it because other people bring in dishes. All right? Everybody's at the cookout. Everybody at the potluck. Everybody bring a dish. All right? Everybody, that's what we do. Everybody bring a dish. We just scared that our dish, nobody gonna dip into it, and we're gonna have to take that stuff all the way back home. You know it. Everybody afraid of that. All right, don't let Patty LaBelle's pie get you all messed up. There's other good pie out there. Bring your stuff to the cookout. Okay? Your faith makes you whole. Stop having these conflicting identities. You know who you are. Don't you worry about if other people know. Do you? And that's how we know. We don't need you to tell us. We need you to do us. Do. We see you. Okay? So when Jesus says, your faith has made you whole, when I look at it metaphysically, or when I try to process it that way, at least, for me, it's saying, like your knowing, your consciousness is receptive enough to allow your transformation, to allow it, let it happen. I resisted a bunch of things like, oh, I don't see that. I don't see myself that way. I can't see it. The funny thing is, everything that I was doing, everyone's like, you're saying that you wouldn't do it, but this is what you do. That's what it is. And I'm like, I don't see it that way. Right? So I transformed right into something that I told someone years ago. Oh yeah, that's never gonna be me. Here I am doing it, and sometimes, most of the time, I'm not aware. I have to even when they ask me, I don't talk about the Bible that much. I thought, but maybe I do, or else people wouldn't be saying that, you know. But anywho, um, it that it's not supposed to be punishment. It's not about favoritism. It's not this magical transaction that happens, right? Sometimes people like to talk about awakenings in this magical way, but sometimes it's not going to be big like that. Shout out to all the people who are having these grandiose experiences, as far as awakenings and transformations and things like that. But most of the time, uh, you know how you gain weight, and maybe last year you was 50 pounds lighter, but you didn't even notice because every day you was gaining like a fourth of a pound, or then other days a half of a. It's just a little bit at a time until finally you look in the mirror and you're like, oh, well, I've gained 50 pounds, right? I found that that's how transformation has worked for me. It hasn't been this grandiose experience, and not that, and so don't discount your experiences because you think, oh, it's not happening. Such and such went to the mountain, came down glowing, and came through dripping. It came down just glowing. No, don't discount yourself for that. That's good for them. We're happy for them, but it doesn't mean anything for you, okay? It doesn't mean anything for you. Your alignment is your alignment, and their alignment is their alignment, and that's just that, okay? Don't you worry about it. So, metaphysically, an interpretation of faith is receptivity, accepting the alignment, stepping into the flow, being willing to remain in that flow. So think of consciousness like soil, okay? Some soil is compacted by fear. It's hard. You gotta break it up, right? It's hardened by shame. It's flooded with trauma. It's crowded with contradiction, okay? But faith is something that softens our soil, right? Not because life becomes easier with faith, but because resistance decreases, right? So this aligns with a whole bunch of positive psychology. So if we step away from the spiritual part, and that is my deal, we think that spiritual and physical is separate realms. And so when we operate in one, we're not going to operate in, no, you're always operating in both. Okay, both. So when you look at it, let's just say I'm not with the spiritual. All right, then when you step over to this positive psychology field, these concepts, you're still talking about expectancy. You're still talking about self-efficacy, right? Efficacy. um, nervous system regulation, openness, still meaning making, things that have meaning, that create meaning in your life. We're still talking about behavioral congruence when we talk about faith as receptivity. Okay? I hope this is coming. I hope this is coming together like it's supposed to. I hope it is. All right, so what we got next? See, that's me believing that this presentation is going to have an impact. Okay, let's get through it. So now we talk about the difference between manifestation and alignment, because a lot of modern teachings kind of reduce faith to just thinking positively and then you'll get stuff or it will come, right? But metaphysical traditions often are teaching something deeper. Faith is not controlling the universe. Faith is becoming congruent with truth and love and clarity and wholeness and conscious participation, intentionality. Okay, so sometimes faith changes circumstances. Sometimes faith changes the person navigating the circumstance, right? You need not be concerned with either of them because both are forms of healing. Does that make sense? Not interchangeable, but both the forms of healing. Okay. Faith, manifestation, and occult practices, because that's something, again, those things come up in the group, right? So I want to address that here a little bit because I do know some folk in the group and their religious affiliations, okay? And with that said, our conversation should not get in the way of anyone and what they practice and your spirit, like your personal spiritual journey. Again, if it ever does, it does not align, it does not add up, you got to drop the group, okay? Get out of the group, all right? If it changes at a different time and you come back in, that's amazing. But if it's not working, get out of the group because it's messing up your journey. It's messing up the steps that you would normally take, okay? In Matthew, Jesus was talking about that, okay? Like I said, with his followers about being some folk are given their responsibilities. It's like the giver, if you've ever seen that, right? There's going to be one person, they chose one person to give some information to, but that information was not meant for everyone. And that's how these occult things will be, right? It's just occult. I think people get mixed up because cults in the word says occult and then cult. So occult practices don't necessarily have to be part of a cult. It just means secret things, things that are not written down, things that are not curated for public knowledge, like the Bible, right? So some occult things are spiritual things that are not curated for the public. And there are some people who don't want that to happen because then it allows everyone to have the Jesus blueprint. And then you can't control people if everyone has the Jesus blueprint. Just saying. All right, here we go. So he was just telling the disciples that everybody, Jesus, the way they have it written, was just telling everybody that like everybody doesn't have the responsibility of knowing, a responsibility, not a privilege, the responsibility of knowing the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, right? And so, but there are folk who are not tasked with the same responsibility, but they just don't matter less, okay? So alignment is something that matters, not necessarily loyalty, right? Now, whether in religion, manifestation, I'm going to call it a manifestation culture because there's so many avenues there. So let's call it manifestation culture. Ritual work, prayer, meditation, occult systems. One thing that is repeatedly happening or being said and communicated is that consciousness matters, intentionality matters, right? The language changes, people call it faith, intention, assumption, because we talk about the law. Well, we haven't, but people talk about the law of assumption, vibration, expectancy, willing, the will, being in the will, gnosis, the Gnostics, Gnosticism, right? Which is actually really close. If you knew about that, you know that Jesus either communed with the Gnostics or he believed some of those things. Get into it. Gnosis, belief, correspondence, the law of correspondence, and alignment. So we use all of those things to communicate the consciousness. Okay. But many systems are attempting to describe the relationship between inner consciousness, symbolic action. That's what witchcraft is, a lot of that, because they take a lot of physical things that are supposed to represent something spiritually. It's almost like New Testament, Old Testament type of thing. And witchcraft, they're still Old Testament people. They're still doing sacrifices. They're still, what is that? Remember when they would send the priest in with the rope or whatever, and he could only go into the holy of the holies, and if he was not all the way right and together, and that's why they send them with a rope, because if he gets obliterated, they got to pull the rope out and they got to send somebody else in, because somebody has to atone for the sin. Somebody got to go in there and do the ritual. Okay, so it's kind of the same thing. Christians or New Testament, because they don't use those things, and then witchcraft, Old Testament, because they still use the physical things to symbolically represent this thing. Although Christians still use communion to symbolically represent, like, the blood covering for the blood sacrifice of Jesus. So people will be like, oh, we don't really drink his blood. All right. In symbolism, though, and in ritual work, all right, to keep you bound to the power that you submit to, that juice is symbolically representing blood. And so therefore it holds the same intensity as actually drinking. You understand? You don't want to understand. I think I just offended somebody right there. Anyway, you were bought with a price. If you're a Christian, you, Yahweh, Jesus, Yeshua, I think those are the only three. Anywho, you were bought with a price, and that price was the blood sacrifice of Jesus Christ. Don't you ever pretend like it's not. So what is manifestation? Metaphysically, manifestation is not just thinking of something and then you get it. Or I'm gonna think about it so much it finally comes. That's not what it's about, right? Even though that's a physical tactic, a physical practice to try to train you mentally. All right. Manifestation is the process by which your thought, your emotion, your identity, your expectation, and your attention mesh with your behavior and the meaning that you have in your life, the purpose for your life. All of those things begin organizing your experience. Like, all of those things are aligned. All of those things are in a flow. Okay. Now, some manifestation is going to be external. Some of it is going to be psychological, right? Understanding and really accessing the power of this technology that we're in, that we have, that we deal with every day. The government understands the power of this technology way more than we do. That's how they're able to put things into the air to make your body break down. That's how they're able to put things into the food that make the chemistry react a certain way to make your brain want this or want that. Come on now, I understand your technology, okay? And some are manifestations are going to be relational, and some manifestations are going to be behavioral. All manifestations are for you, or not for everyone else around you. But we want it to be fair. We want everything to be seen. What's that one song by Drake? I don't know if it's by Trey Songz or Drake, but both of them have been on it. And it's I just want to be successful. Listen to the song, because he said, I want the money, money and the cars, cars and the clothes, the ladies. I suppose, I think, I believe I do. I don't know what I want, but I just want to be successful. And if those are the material things that make me successful, then I need people to see that because then they know that I'm successful. Now, that's what I mean by that. It's material, right? It's external, but there will be relational, psychological, behavioral things of success where people feel that same feeling of success without you seeing the material things that they would indicate as success. But the emotion that comes with being successful is exactly the same. Okay. Except that person's waiting for the money and the cars and the clothes, they suppose. And that's when they're going to figure out that when I get those things, then am I successful? Am I feeling it? And sometimes, most of the time, they're not. Look at all your celebrities who have complained about getting the money and the cars and the clothes, the ladies, the gentlemen, and they don't they don't feel any mean making. They don't feel happy. They don't feel successful. Anyway, many people manifest patterns long before they manifest possessions, right? And you hear that too with celebrities. They knew they were going to be a comedian. They knew this. They every day that they woke up, this is just what they knew. They didn't have it. Again, I used to be a fan, like I guess a fan. I liked Drake music. Let's say it like that. I never went to a concert, anything like that, because I'm not that kind of fan. Okay. But I like the music, the early music. I don't know what his late music is like, but I like the earlier music when it came out, when he didn't have everything and he just wanted to be successful. He got another song. What he say? Shout out Little Yachty, but there's not a little boat. Something, something, something. So I wrote about this when I was broke. Something said that I wouldn't, but I did. So that's just saying, like, I didn't even have that. I wrote this song, I didn't even have it, but I knew that I would. Okay. Even when he said successful, he said he just wanted to be alive for it. Diss me, you never hear a reply for it. I'm sorry, I still like that song, but yeah. So people manifest patterns way before they do possessions. The part is we can't get into the pattern part. We mess up our own patterns. Let's be for real. So, faith as the engine behind manifestation. Let's talk about it. A person can repeat affirmations all day long. I said that before. Okay. And still internally, they're going to expect failure. All right. I deserve to be loved. I am loved. Right. And still be talking about these ninjas ain't. You see? You see? So we do that all the time. Why? Because words alone are not faith. Okay. Not. Metaphysically, faith is energetic agreement. All right. If the conscious mind says, I am abundant, but the nervous system says, I'm unsafe, then you're not going to realize abundance. You won't be able to see it because your glass, you just can't. It's out of your reach, right? There is an internal contradiction. It's right there, though. It's right there. But you can't see it because that internal contradiction puts a wall up. You're on this side, and it's right there on the other side. Okay? This is why a lot of manifestation practices fail. And then I don't know about you, but if you ever have something work, it is kind of scary. Like, it's supposed to be a fairy tale. Because internally, I'm like, oh, whatever. This not. That was my experience. Okay. Like we have these rituals. I like to use that word because it's triggering, right? But it's just things that you do you might have a bedtime ritual, you might have a dinner ritual, right? It doesn't mean that you're out up in here cooking chickens, making spells. Okay, no, that's not what it is. But we might have a ritual that we are performing, the things that we say to ourselves, talking positively to ourselves, but consciousness remains unconvinced. There's not a knowing. Some of us can't know unless we've actually seen it. And even when we see it happen for others, it never happened to me. Right. So I'm never going to realize it because I'm having this internal conflict. Okay. Consciousness remains unconvinced. So what's the difference between a technique and a conviction? That's what we really should be talking about, right? Uh, A lot of the systems out here, and you're probably familiar with some of them, scripting, using sigils, candles, prayer, visualization. I've talked about some of these affirmations, chanting, mantras, petitions, meditation, altars, right? But metaphysically, the technique itself is often not viewed as the true power. That's not the true power. It's just a little boat that you need because you see it, you see the brick wall, and you're like, I need a tool to bust through the brick wall, and those are the tools. Okay. You grab one of those, I can use this efficiently. Boom, I can break down the brick wall. Because I don't believe with just my existence and my energy that I would be able to do that, right? But metaphysically, the technique itself, like I said, it's not the true power. The technique is just designed to like focus your consciousness because you're not trained to do that, right? And so now this is a time that I know I'm going to do this, and you know what I mean? So it sets you up. It's to stabilize your intentions. It's to get rid of distractions or bypass them. It's to try to evoke emotion. It is to tap into or create that symbolic meaning for you. All of those things are meant for you to increase receptivity. It is trying to train you in a way that increases your receptivity. Okay, that's what those things are. So whether they be evil or good, however you label those things, it's a tool. Okay, crystals, all those things, just a tool. Okay, um, they lack power without your technology. Okay. Please believe. A lot of us think that I touched the crystal, it gave me the power for my technology. No, your technology already has the power, and then your technology, boom, ignites the crystal. You understand? In other words, the ritual is just organizing the belief. Okay? And the crystal is something that you can see. I'm not downplaying crystals. Please believe, respect to your community. Okay? But at the end of the day, the two technologies team up to make the weapon. All right. Uh, and the people who go read about the breastplate of righteousness. There's like he explains it. He even there's some crystals why they have those are crystals. The same ones these other people be playing with. I put it in quotations because I always say people play with crystals. The same ones, a lot of those same ones and some important ones is in that breastplate of righteousness. Why is that? And then why are there precious metals and all of those things in that description of heaven? Ask yourself that. Focus on that if crystals getting in the way for you. Go to your Bible, focus on that. Okay. And leave these people who put crystals in their bra and stuff like that, and where they leave them alone. Leave these folk alone. Mind your business. All right. So occult practices and the use of symbolism, because there's a lot of symbolism in the Bible. We don't like to admit that, but it is. And so the word occult itself just usually or originally meant like hidden or concealed knowledge. Now, there's some debate about Jesus, like he was in the temple and all those things when he was young, right? And then we don't know nothing about him allegedly after 12 or 13 years old. And then next thing you know, boom, he comes back in his early 30s, and he dies, right? Allegedly at 33. All right. Which holds its own, it's so that number holds its own story with some people out here too. You see what I mean? But somehow that same number made it into the Bible. And anywho, so what happened? Some people say that Jesus was out here learning how to use his technology, okay, away from family, that he went exploring consciousness and things like that. He was with the Most High, with his Father, and it led him to mystery schools on the Eastern side, because a lot of things that he was doing, you can find that information in Eastern practices, right? And so, like energetic healing, when he came back and he was healing folk, okay, they're thinking that he had to get aligned with the Most High, with that authority, in order to execute it. Okay, so anyway, like I said, those things are debated. Get into it if you're into it, but it's not necessary for your own personal journey if you don't want to. That's on you. Okay. but it usually just means hidden or concealed knowledge. And so not all occult practices are harmful or sinister. Discernment is needed. Okay, a lot of those traditions are exploring symbolism, which Christians participate in every day, especially with the communion. I love saying that. Um, Consciousness, planetary cycles. Some people debate about, Jesus being the Son, SON, as compared to the Son, SUN, and then having those 12 disciples and what their characters, like their characteristics are, and all of those things. Some people liken it to, what is the other thing? The zodiac and all of that good stuff. There were Bibles that were printed in earlier times where, is it Luke or Matthew? One of them was represented by the lion, and they each had pictures, which some people would debate coincide with, again, the zodiac or astrology, things like that. We talk about archetypes, correspondence, the relationship between inner and outer, right? Those are occult practices. Some people may be familiar with Hermeticism. That's an occult practice. Hermes Trismegistus, Christ, Trismegistus. I cannot say his name, but y'all know what I'm talking about. Some people have those ceremonial rituals like those ones in the Old Testament and some of those things. Maybe it's Wicca. I don't know. I don't practice those things, so I don't want to misrepresent anybody. Okay. And I really haven't um taken a deep dive into Wicca and things like that, or some other pagan practices. But I know they do rituals where they use stuff. Some people use things from the environment, from nature, things like that. Hair and stuff like that. So I know that they use those things in their ceremonial rituals. I don't know exactly what all they do and all the power that it's supposed to hold. I know about alchemy. There's mysticism. People talk about the what do they call it? Kabbalah, right? I think that's Jewish. Astrology. There's sacred geometry. I think that what's his name probably dabbled in that a little bit. What's his name? Nikola Tesla, and symbolic meditation systems as well. Again, I like to talk about logos and the way that people name their companies. So it's interesting that people think that Elon Musk, they think him to be some type of genius or whatever. He has this company, Tesla or whatnot. Once you understand who Nikola Tesla is, right? And all of his inventions and all of these things. Again, I think we're just disconnected from some things. We're just not seeing it. Anywho, metaphysically, we get into symbolism, and those things are often understood as tools that communicate with deeper layers of consciousness, right? They spark things, wake things up in you. And that's why symbols feel so powerful. It's why I ask questions about symbols that appear in certain places. I remember seeing a photo on the news, like a representation on the news. And when they showed, it was a financial institution. Was it the stock exchange building? I don't know, but there's a financial building. I believe it was in New York. And then when they showed the pictures of it, at the base of this statue that they had a lot of markings on it that looked Egyptian. And I remember it sparking my interest at the time because I had been to Arizona and we had gone to the zoo there in Phoenix. And when we went on the tour, they took us by the founder's grave. He was buried on the land. And when they took us by the site, like you weren't able to access it, but it was like this thing like, oh, there it is, like pointing up. Well, when we went by the site, there was a pyramid on his gravesite. Like, why would you do that? And then that visual came back up to me when they showed, forbid we mention it, the island, and it had that pyramid on there. There's a very similar pyramid for that founder guy on Phoenix Zoo property, and he wanted to be buried that way. Why? It's a white guy. Why? Is he Egyptian? Because they didn't identify him as Egyptian. Why? Why did they want that? What's going on with that? Okay, what's going on? So then it was like, why would you have those things? This is American. We're not there in Egypt. Why have they put those things there for the American? I want to say it was the stock exchange building. But anywho, we are just, when I say we, I'm talking about humans, human beings, we're just symbolic creatures, right? And these symbols are changing over time, or at least we say that they're changing over time, but they've been around for a long time. So it's like, do we really understand the meaning of these things, right? A wedding ring is not just metal. So um, when there's critique about people celebrating anniversaries, weddings, birthdays, and things like that, if you have a wedding and you wear a white dress and you cut a cake and you exchange rings, all of that is symbolism. Symbolism that doesn't have anything to do with Christianity per se. Okay? The binding to each other. That's what the rings are for. It's a binding to each other. However, there are people who practice things where gifts bind you to them. Just saying. Anywho, flags, they're not just fabric, right? They carry a meaning so deep that there can be legal punishment for defacing one, right? Okay. A cross, not just wood or a piece of metal, right? Some people think that it keeps unlikely creatures away from you, human or not. And some people see it as a symbolism of their faith in the Christian, or I'm going to call it Abrahamic faith. Because there's so many sects, so many denominations. We're just going to call it Abrahamic faith, which means you believe in one God and you see that God is Jesus, who still says he's the son of God. But anyway, Jesus, Yahweh, Yeshua, right? Okay. The same thing, a dollar bill. It's just a piece of paper, but it's not, right? Like it's a piece of paper with different numbers, because each one has different value symbolism. So meaning it really amplifies what's going on emotionally, and it amplifies a psychological response, which is why logos are important for businesses, okay? Which is why colors are important for advertisement for businesses. Okay. You don't even know that you're responding, and it's right in your face. Okay. Hidden in plain sight. Okay, let's move on. So occult and religious systems are both using symbols. They're both using repetition. When you listen to the radio, that's why they have a curated playlist, right? They send you the same 6 songs all day, all day. And they have to get an approval if another song is going to go on the rotation. Why is that? Anywho, both of them use ceremony. There's so many ceremonies in the Christian church. And then when you get over to the Roman Catholic folk, there's a lot of ceremonies. They're still sending up sage in the air, all of those things when they're still doing those things. Okay, they still sage the joint. All right. The sensory experience, healing and things like that, right? Both use that. Focused intention to shape our consciousness, prayer, meditation, both use that. Some people say they don't use prayer. And then some Christians say meditation is demonic, even though the Bible says to meditate on the scriptures day and night. But anywho, it's a vehicle, okay? So let's talk about faith and religious and occult systems. Now, there's an interesting overlap because both religious prayer and occult rituals, they both depend on like expectation. They both depend on your focused attention, what type of emotional investment you have, symbolic action as well, right? Going into your secret place. Now, most people just gonna go in the closet. They got a room they pray in or whatnot. But when he tells Go upstairs, meet the water bear. There's things going on that are more than just you physically going into your closet. Okay. There's something here that you need to access as well. And that's the deeper thing. So on the surface, we get the snack, which is going to our physical closet. But underneath, there's a whole meal when you go into your secret place and close the door behind you. Get into it. We'll get into those things later. Um, and then both rely on a perceived connection to power. Okay. Whether that be outside of you or something innately built and encoded within you. Okay. All right. And we seem to argue about that all the time. The language is a little bit different. Okay, but the psychology and and metaphysically, there's a lot of similarities, right? When we look at religious framework, then it's the I believe, you believe, you don't know it, but you believe that God will provide. If you look at it as far as manifestation, right, it's I align myself with what God has provided for me. Like what's already set aside for me, I align myself with that. Okay. We have ritual framework, which is I direct intention through this symbolic action. And all of these require attention. All of these require meaning. All of these have expectation, and all of these require participation. Now, what's the danger in magical thinking? I talked about it. I love some magic. I ain't gonna lie to you. But everything ain't magical. Not the way we present it, because we present it as something that's whimsical and fun, childlike, not possible. I like all of the descriptions except the last one. Impossible. I'm magic. Okay. This is important. I think this is important for balanced teaching because metaphysical traditions, they can become unhealthy when you believe that every hardship in your life is self-created, okay? When you believe or start to believe that suffering means that you've failed spiritually. Um, when you believe that rituals replace your responsibility and accountability. When you believe that symbolic acts override reality. Too much of anything is always dangerous. The imbalance is always something that is poisonous for us. So it's about being balanced, okay? Faith is not something that disconnects you from critical thinking. It's not something that disconnects you from accountability. It's not something that disconnects you from emotional healing. It's not something that disconnects you from nervous system care. It's not something that disconnects you from ethics. It's not something that disconnects you from practical action. It all flows together. Okay? It all flows together. It's not something that's delusional. It's not. A candle does not replace communication because burning candles don't replace that. Okay. A ritual does not replace your accountability. Okay. Affirmations don't replace healing trauma. Okay. Just tools. They're tools. So let's talk about belief versus embodied knowing and manifestation. Now, a lot of people try to manifest while internally expecting disappointment. I'm gonna try this. I hope it works. Did it work for you? Okay, so you don't believe it works. Why are you even wasting your time? Do something else, boo-boo. Do something else with your energy, your technology, with your power. Do something else. Because this just a waste of your energy, right? It creates divided consciousness. Okay. When we talk about manifestation, it's usually talking about or teaching something about assumption, which means it's not there for you right now. Talk about certainty because you're certain that it will be there. It's not. It hasn't shown up in the material, in the E equals MC squared, in the, what's the M, mass? It hasn't showed up in that way. Doesn't mean that it does not exist. So there's certainty, unwavering belief, unwavering knowing. Um, why is it that way? Because internal coherence really influences behavior and perception. When you know something, you move accordingly. When you're not sure, you also move accordingly. You see? But you can say that you're sure all day long and not really believe it. And when you move, you're going to move according to the disbelief. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, metaphysically, forcing belief can create emotional suppression. Okay. So true knowing usually develops through your repetition, your lived experience, your emotional safety, nervous system regulation, and gradual alignment. Okay. Keep it simple on that one. Now, what's the role of the nervous system? Is I talk about nervous system a lot in resonant consent material, which is what we're going into in this new phase of Take the Leap group. We're going to start on that. And this is where modern psychology kind of intersects beautifully with metaphysics. A dysregulated nervous system really struggles to sustain receptivity. Okay. And if someone has lived through trauma, adverse childhood experiences, that might include abandonment, there might be chronic instability in the family or in your life experience in a relationship, shame, fear, then your body interprets that or possibly interprets that as danger. Okay. And the reason why that is because um, some people sabotage opportunities. Some people reject love. Some people fear visibility, right? Imposter syndrome. Some people cling to scarcity. And it's not because we want to do those things. It's because those experiences have conditioned us to move in that way. So it's difficult for us to move into alignment, into the flow, for us to access, right? Those things act as the brick wall between us and what we desire, because faith is not always blocked by a lack of desire, okay? Sometimes it's blocked by survival condition. And that's why I chose to just focus on self-love, because we work through that survival condition, okay? If you have holes in the foundation, there's a real good chance your beautiful house will fall under pressure, under bad weather, under storms. You understand? So the self-love piece creates a foundation that is solid for us to build on, okay? Because storms will come, okay? Things will attack, okay? People will mistreat and not maintenance, not contribute, right? People will abuse. People will litter. That's what people do. But at a strong foundation, our house is not going to fall down, okay? When we build a great structure that can withstand the elements of the external. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. So metaphysically, when I reframe, okay, manifestation is not forcing reality to obey us, because we may think it's that. It's not. Reality is always flowing and going. We're just out of alignment with it. Okay. And the things that we label as bad or good, right? Both of those things are needed to bring together the experiences that we think we desire, right? You think everybody who liked you chose? No. Okay. But But you are experiencing the best love of your life at this time because you chose that person and you didn't choose the other person. So the other person might be having heartbreak. It was not a good experience for them when you was out here dating, which is cool. Everybody's dating. But then, maybe you're gonna settle down with two. I don't know. There's these poly conversations. Maybe you're gonna settle down with two or three. But the point is, you didn't choose everyone who wanted to settle down. And so everyone's not living the best love. Everyone's not getting what they thought they desired. Like everything, but that rejection, not being in the flow with that person is supposed to open you up to your own flow. It's supposed to create a process where you get in alignment with the flow. But instead, we'll be stuck in emotion. Why didn't they accept me into their flow? Why couldn't I flow with them? This is hurting me. I feel like I want to die. This has been taken from me. It's never really viewed as this is pushing me to where I'm supposed to be. It's always they took it. I don't have it. Okay? That's what I talk about. So manifestation doesn't obey us. Okay. What it does is that we were having this conscious participation where we're becoming internally congruent. We are recognizing patterns too, right? Patterns of behavior that we want to avoid, patterns of behaviors that we want to accept. And once we realize what that is and what we want, because a lot of us don't even know, right? So we just do whatever, hoping that we get it, right? But once we know and we're very intentional and we're conscious about that intention, then we accept more of that. Not that you're not going to experience these other things that feel negative, that feel hurtful, no, those things are still going to happen. And you're still going to remain in flow, right? Some people think other people sound crazy for like, thank you for all the people who did this or did that. And it's like all these hurtful things. It's because if they had never did those things to that fool, they was never going to get kicked into flow. They was always just going to be puppy dogging around away from their flow. You understand? And finally had to say, hey, get out of here. Can't be here. Go over there. It's what those real OGs used to do for the kids in the neighborhood instead of employing them. But anyway, all right. So it helps us to recognize patterns that we want to accept and patterns that we want to reject, not just by others, but in ourselves as well. And then we're learning how attention shapes our experience. See, that's why I want my books by me. Is it E2? I got the E2 book. I want to say maybe it is by Brene Brown, but I better make sure. I'm a fan of, but I'm not sure. Let me make sure. Anywho, there's these little exercises that you do in there. And one of the exercises is very common, because if ever you wanted to buy a new car, you buy it, right? Maybe you knew that you wanted that car, but people make a comment about once you get the car, you start to see those way more than before you had the car, before you wanted it. It's just because you pay more attention to it because it's the car that you're having. Oh, that's like my car. Oh, that's like my car. Those cars have been rolling around here. You just were not giving attention to it. You see, your blessings have been rolling around here. They've been floating all around you. Your abundance floating all around you. Your love is floating all around you. It's been all around you. You cannot pay attention to it because you don't have it. And it's not even that you don't have it. You just think you don't have it. Once you know once you know you have love for yourself, that's when you see all you can notice all the love flowing around you because you know what it looks like. You have it. I hope that makes sense. But I hope that makes sense. But anywho, the group is rebooting. Everything, is coming together. We're just having these conversations just in case you're coming in the middle, trying to break everything down. So instead of if you don't have 6 weeks to go through the course, cool beans, no problem. If you do, I suggest it. If you just want to pick up the questions, I suggest it. If you want access to the prayer treatments and things like that, I could hook you up. You want the affirmations, all of that, hit me up on social media. Preferably, I think I said that, but I don't know if I meant it. Put it in the comments. I do check some of my messages over on what's that, Facebook? It's better if you just put it in the comments, okay? And then I will see it. if you want access to any of those things, I got your back. And then I'll send that to you. Let me know what's up. Let's talk about it. Let's have some questions and concerns. Let's drop some thoughts in the group. All right. The group is meant to be participatory, not just me talking, right? I believe in learning at the same time that you can be a teacher, you're a student as well. Like, never stop being a student. There's always something that you can learn. And I think that's why you get to be in a position to teach, is because you're open to learning, and being open to those possibilities is always growing you at every moment. So jump in the group if you feel so inclined. And provide opposition as well. I love a little bit of that, because you always need to be pushed out of your comfort zone. So for me, something that challenges is like I need that information, because if I never considered it and it hasn't jumped onto my plate yet, when is that going to happen? It's the people who provide that resistance that allows that full growth. Do you want to be whole? I ask myself that every day. I can't be whole if I'm just only, rocking with the people who feel how I feel. I also like to understand the other side of things, right? Like why we can't make the bridge, because how can I want to coach people, be a coach of people, if I don't understand what's going on with them, right? Because I don't think coaching is about making mini me's. It's not about that. For me, coaches is making the best you. And to do that, I have to know who you are. To do that, you have to know who you are, right? I can't cheerlead you anywhere. I can't give you the tools that's best for you if I don't know anything about you. That can't happen. So I want people to understand that online, that's not what's happening. This is information that you have to figure out, how is it a tool in your life, or how is it going to lead you to the tool that works in your life? Okay, that's what the online stuff. I'm never talking to anyone very specific, sharing my own personal experiences and then giving some information. But then that's where your part comes in. You got to get active and start moving around. All right. So I've already dropped the reflection questions in the Facebook group for comment on this little segment here about faith. You can use them as a journal prompt if you want to. I like to also say, hey, these are conversation starters in the group. So that's why I put them as separate posts. They're done in a way so the conversation and exchange can remain focused on that one question. As adults, I just ask that we try to stay on topic. How can you argue with somebody about personal growth and development? Because it's about yourself, okay? So, and we all do things differently. We can share. Sharing is caring, but never do we need to tell people how to live. That's something that you need to figure out, okay? So just want you to know, as I close this little video here, and I know it's been a long time, that just happens. All right. Faith is not merely something about wishing, okay? It's not merely wishing. It's a relationship between consciousness, expectation, meaning, and participation. And manifestation practices, religious prayers, cult systems, they often attempt to answer the same questions. Okay. How does inner reality influence outer experience? And that answer is going to differ. But nearly all of those traditions agree on one thing, and that's what we consistently attend to, where we place our attention, what we consistently identify with, and what we emotionally energize. What we emotionally energize. What we emotionally energize. I want to say that out loud, because I'm talking about being in your emotions. What we emotionally energize. There's some things we need to remove our emotion from, and it will go away. But it's because we won't. We're stuck there. We're stuck in the hurt. We're stuck in the anger. We're stuck there. And it continues to emotionally energize the situation. We can't move away from it. That is the brick wall in front of us. And y'all know what I'm talking about. I'm not going to even name it. But we are continuing to emotionally energize the situation, and that has profound influence over how we experience life. Okay? It really does. And that's why something can be true and going on for this group of people, but not true and going on for this group of people. I will see you in the comments. The group is on Facebook. It's called Take the Lead. It is a private group because I want everybody to be able to really express yourselves. And so anyone that I let in the group, and I do monitor it, if the comments get funky, then I'm going to squash it, right? Because that's not what we're here for. Um, and I want to be able to talk about anything. That's why the group is private. It's not that you can't let people in, but also I'm trusting you to be responsible enough to yourself and accountable to yourself enough to understand this does not align with me. And then, how you need to move in and out of the group, then feel free to do so. My name is Shay, and I do Shay's Pretty Skinny, where it's everything except keeping it cute podcast, group info, one-on-one facilitation. I really like group facilitation too. Just sometimes we have one-on-one conversations that it just needs to be had so it doesn't take away from the group. But contact me, ask me questions. I'm very excited about that. I'm very excited about this era that we're going into. Have a good one.